Hello everyone! A couple of you have been asking about my favorites. My favorite lore characters, my favorite races, my favorites whatever. In honor of the Final Boss podcast, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at my top 10 final bosses. These are the bosses ranging from end bosses all the way to the Brawlers Guild, and keep in mind that it's not so much about the encounter as it is about the story behind them. Now this is my list and you'll probably have a different opinion, so feel free to post your own list in the comments. Let's begin, shall we? On number 10 we have Princess Feradras. We encounter this beautiful lady within Maraudon, and from the questline we learn that she was allied with the Old Gods. This should not be surprising. Most of the elements in the early days of Azeroth worked for the Old Gods, and Feradras' mother is the elemental lord of all the earth, Pherazane, the Stone Mother. The Titans, they imprisoned Feradras within Maraudon, and at some point she had a love relation with a son of the demigod Cenarius, and this son was named Zethar. It's unknown how exactly these two met, or why they fell in love. All we know is that from their union, from their love, a new race emerged, the race of the Centaurs. As you can imagine, from a union between Feradras and Zethar, nothing good will ever come, and their children killed their own father. Feradras loved him so much that she placed his remains within Maraudon, and she refuses to leave his side. Even during the Cataclysm, where Cho'Gall tells her that she's free and that the bonds from the Titans are weakening, she doesn't want to leave him. Now being dead and all, not being able to return from the Emerald Dream has given Zethar some time to think, and he's come to the conclusion that his love relation with Feradras was a bad decision. He now contacts heroes as they approach Feradras and tells them that she needs to die in order for his spirit to be free and the land of Desolace to heal. Poor Feradras, all she wanted was someone to love. Number 9 goes to Gruul the Dragon Killer. When the original Horde invaded Azeroth for the second time, they came with a plan. That plan was to collect artifacts and use those artifacts to create more portals to different worlds. The Alliance, they managed to breach their defenses and teleport to Draenor in an attempt to stop them from making these portals and threatening other worlds like they did with Azeroth. It was during this time that Deathwing made a deal with the Horde. You bring a few of my eggs and dragons to Draenor, and my dragons will aid you on Azeroth. A new world to conquer for this mad aspect was too much to resist, and he had a pretty solid plan behind it, was it not for Gruul and the Alliance. The journey of the Alliance in trying to find the artifacts took them to the Blade Edge Mountains, where they could sense the skull of Gul'dan. They needed this skull to close the Dark Portal, but they didn't know that the skull had already passed on from the Horde into the hands of Deathwing. When they reached Blade Edge, they found a bunch of Deathwing's eggs, and they decided to smash them here and now to kill the threat before it was even born. This enraged Deathwing and all of his Black Dragonflight that were trying to protect these eggs, and he soon appeared to take care of these meddling insects. What he didn't count on that day was Gruul. And what you need to understand is that you have ogres. Ogres are led by Gron, and then you have Gruul. He was massive and decided to ally himself with the Alliance against this Black Dragonflight who dared to enter his territory. Now truth be told, he wasn't really a match for the might of Deathwing, but thankfully the mage Khadgar did manage to weaken the metal that was keeping Deathwing together, and this forced him to retreat. In the Burning Crusade, Gruul became a boss with a very small story. He was basically just there for the loot, which was a real shame. I hope that they're going to use Warlords of Draenor as the perfect moment to make Gruul an ally against the Iron Horde. Let's hope so. Number 8 goes to Queen Azshara, Light of Lights. This lady is so powerful and such a badass that the only thing you can do is interrupt her spells.
Bold of you to strike a queen. A lesser monarch might be enraged.
Fighting you is simply below her. She'll just send servants after you instead, and you can deal with it. I've done a full story on Azshara, which I'll link so you can check it out. But what you need to understand and what you need to know is that it was no coincidence that this lady was worshipped by her people. As beautiful as she was powerful, as deadly as she was out of her mind with trying to make Sargeras her mate, her choices would eventually lead to a new race, the Naga. Born from the power of the old gods and still causing trouble beneath the oceans of Azeroth. Number 7. Millhouse Manastorm.
Prepare to face the mighty Millhouse
Now you might think, what? Millhouse, really? But you have to give some respect for the way that this gnome just refuses to go down. We first encounter Millhouse back in the Burning Crusade, where he somehow, someway ended up in the Arcatraz. The Arcatraz, as the name suggests, is a prison made by the Naru for the most dangerous beings in the universe. Millhouse was not one of these beings, he was just unlucky, a stowaway who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. We set him free, and in exchange he gladly helps us kill Warden Malakar, a corrupted blood elf who's setting all these prisoners free.
My, you're a tall one.
Who's bad? Who's bad? That's right, we bad.
In the Cataclysm, we find out that Millhouse has allied himself with the Twilight's Hammer clan and is now working for the Old Gods. He has hidden away a piece of the stone pillar and tries to kill us all in the stone core with his new spell called Impending Doom. He never gets the chance to finish the spell though, because Corberus pops up and presumably kills everyone. Or so we thought anyways, because in the midst of Pandaria, a new challenger appears in the Brawlers Guild. Millhouse Manastorm, a gnome who just won't quit, is now trying his luck in brawling heroes of both the Alliance and the Horde. Is this the last that we've seen of him? Have we finally killed him in the Brawlers Guild? I highly doubt it. Number 6, Teron Gorefiend. Teron is also one of those guys who just keeps coming at you. His life began as an orc, serving within Gul'dan's Shadow Council, ruling the first horde behind the curtains. When Orgrim Doomhammer found out about this corruption, he took care of it. He killed nearly every member of the council while Gul'dan was in a coma. Gul'dan woke up, pleaded for his life, and Orgrim spared him in exchange for new powerful troops. The first Death Knights were born, and Teron Gorefiend was part of that group. The spirit of an orc warlock placed in the body of a fallen Alliance soldier, and an incredibly dark and powerful being. Eventually Gul'dan betrays the Horde again and leaves his brothers behind in search of more power. This cripples the Horde in such a manner that it pushes them back all the way to Blackrock Mountain and even back to Draenor. Despite being a creation of Gul'dan, Gorefiend was not loyal to him. He was loyal to the Horde, and it was he who came up with the plan of creating more portals to different worlds. It was Gorefiend who collected artifacts and followed Ner'zhul all the way to the Black Temple. There his final confrontation with Turellian took place, but he did manage to slow the Alliance down just enough for Ner'zhul to create his portals.
For me, the wheel of death has spun many times.
Like I said, some guys just don't stay down, and even after getting killed by Turellian in the Burning Crusade, Teron Gorefiend tricks us the heroes, into restoring his body and making him a boss in the Black Temple. We kill him of course, we enter, we clean up our mistake, but the question is, for how long?
The wheel spins again.
Number 5, Major Domo Stakhelm. Stakhelm, a night elf who has lived for a very long time, and in that time, he really didn't have it easy. He first lost his wife as she gave birth to his son. That's tragic, but at least he still had a child, and he named him Valstan. Valstan would eventually marry with Liara, but during the War of the Shifting Sands, he lost his life. This war was between the forces of C'Thun and the Night Elves, who eventually team up with the dragons. General Rajak was leading C'Thun's forces, while Stakhelm was leading the Night Elves, and he was doing a great job. The forces of C'Thun were actually, well, kinda impressed by him. So they realized that Stakhelm needed to be taken care of, and Rajak knew that Stakhelm had one great weakness: his love for his son. They captured Valstan and brutally executed him in front of the Night Elf forces. This action shattered Stakhelm. First his wife, now his only son. He was devastated, and the Night Elf forces were forced to retreat all the way to Tanaris. The war would end in a victory, as the dragons eventually teamed up with the Night Elves, but the blow dealt to Stakhelm would haunt him for the rest of his life.
Stakhelm will whimper and beg for his life, just as his whelp of a son did.
After the events in Warcraft 3, the Night Elves lost their world tree, and Stakhelm believed that they needed to build a new one. Malfurion disagreed, but later he would get lost in the Emerald Dream, and Stakhelm was able to convince the others to build this tree anyways. This is actually the starting area for Night Elves back in Classic, and To the players he offered a quest where they could turn in Moro grain for rewards. But unknown to all was that Steghelm was using this Moro grain to keep Malfurion trapped within the Emerald Dream. For the Emerald Dream had turned into the Emerald Nightmare, and the old god N'Zoth, together with Xavius, had imprisoned Malfurion. The World Tree built by Steghelm was corrupted. He himself was under the influence of the old gods, controlled by fake visions of his son, but nobody knew. Not until the events in the novel Stormrage, where Malfurion, with the help from some others, manages to break free, and in the end, Steghelm's corruption becomes clear and they imprison him. Now, in comes the Cataclysm, where Deathwing and Ragnaros they team up and they try to take over the world. Ragnaros sends out his minions to free Steghelm, and Steghelm recruits his daughter-in-law Liara into his new faction of Druids of the Flame. The Horde has killed Liara's daughter, and she's sick of Malfurion's passive stand in regards to the Horde. With his new team of badass flame druids and his new title of Majordomo, Steghelm is sent to take out the one threat to Deathwing's plans. They crash the Gathering, where Thrall and friends were planning to restore the original World Tree, and they break Thrall into the 4 elements and scatter him across the elemental plane. As we know, we managed to stop all their plans, we killed Steghelm in the Firelands, and we saved the world. But Steghelm had one hell of a ride. Number 4 goes to Paragons of the Kluxi. I loved the story of the Paragons, the story of the Kluxi, and the story of the Mantid. When we set foot on Pandaria, we give strength to the already existing Sha. This Sha corrupts the Mantid Queen, and we need the Kluxi their help in setting this right. One by one, we release these Paragons from the Ember. Some are simply stuck, others are fished up out of the sea, but all of them are needed. They're needed to take out the Queen since she has become corrupted, but the Queen is not happy about that.
Death to all who dare challenge my empire!
She barges in, kills nearly everyone there, and then she just leaves again, saying, "This is my kingdom, these are my Mantid, back off." It seems that a more hands-on approach is required, but before we go and fight their queen, the Kluxi give us a warning.
I tell you now, because you have earned this warning. If the Old Ones ever return, we Mantid will once again stand by their side. The wisest among you will do the same.
When the old god Yogg-Saron returns, they will stand at his side. And so they did. Several months after these events, after playing the game, Garrosh finds the heart of Yogg-Saron. He reawakens the power of the old god, and the Kluxi do everything in their power to protect their god. They take on the children of the Titans, but in the end, they fail.
Well fought, Awakener. We will meet again.
Which brings us to the top 3 of the list. At number 3, Yogg-Saron. Now you can't make a list like this without including one of the old gods. I was pondering, I was thinking which one was the most badass and had the best story behind it. And in the end, it's Yogg-Saron, because he has so much speculation going around it that makes him just that little bit extra cool. First, his background. Once upon a time, the Titans came to Azeroth and they found the old gods who were having a party. They were creating lots of chaos and they needed to deal with this. They tried to kill the old gods, but found out that killing them would mean the destruction of the world, so they couldn't do that, and instead they decided to imprison them. Yogg-Saron was imprisoned within Ulduar in the location of Northrend. After that, they placed a couple of Titan keepers to keep an eye on things, and well, they left the world. Over the years, Yogg-Saron managed to corrupt his jailers, weaken the defenses of Ulduar, and nearly escape his prison. Bran Bronzebeard found out about this, quickly reported it to the Kirin Tor, and both the Alliance and Horde set out to deal with this threat. Now during this battle, after setting these Titan Keepers free, after making your way to the prison, you fight against Yogg-Saron, and he's trying to invade your mind, trying to drive you crazy, and you actually have to go inside his mind in order to weaken the brain and kill the bastard. Now what we see inside the brain is a vision, 3 of them, and each vision shows a different moment in the history of Azeroth, and it's speculated that Yogg-Saron somehow, some way influenced these moments. We see the creation of the Dragon Soul, later to be named the Demon Soul. This one is relatively easy explained. We know that it was the old gods who told Deathwing that he needed to make this device. That was their ultimate plan. That's an easy one. We see the Lich King torturing Bolvar, claiming that he will break him like he broke Saurfang. This one is a little bit harder to explain, but we know that the Lich King used a whole bunch of Saronites for his citadel, for all that good stuff. We even see them mining it. So we know that he used this Saronite, and this Saronite is actually the blood of Yogg-Saron. Did this blood of Yogg-Saron influence Arthas, influence the Lich King in his actions, or is it purely coincidence? We see Garona as she kills the King of Stormwind. We know that Garona only killed the king because she was under Gul'dan's spell. We also know that Cho'Gall and the Twilight's Hammer clan would later serve the Old Gods. Did Yogg-Saron already influence these events? This is all speculation and we don't know for sure. We don't even know why they would influence these specific moments. But what we do know is that Yogg-Saron was one hell of an encounter, one hell of an Old God, and still a lot of fun to solo.
Your fate is sealed. The end of days is finally upon you, and all who inhabit this miserable little seedling.
Number 2, Nefarian from the original Blackwing Lair. Why is Nefarian so high on the list? Nostalgia, mainly, because this is my list and this is my personal final boss. The last boss that I killed during my hardcore raiding time way back in Classic WoW. Sure, I've done a little bit of raiding after that, but not as serious as I was during that time. The story: when Deathwing made his plans of transporting X to Draenor, he told his 2 children, Onyxia and Nefarian, to cause some trouble on Azeroth. Onyxia decided to infiltrate Stormwind, while Nefarian made his way to Blackrock Mountain. There, he took control over the remaining forces of the original Horde, the so-called Dark Horde, and he worked on his experiments. He experimented on whelps from the different flights, trying to combine their blood and transform them into chromatic dragons. Dragons who held within them elements from all the different flights. What makes this boss so cool to me is the road that led to him. In order to do Blackwing Lair, you had to get a special cloak, and the only way to get this cloak was by killing his sister Onyxia. A whole questline was required in order to even enter Onyxia's lair, and you also had an achievement quest for easy access into Blackwing Lair. Once inside and ready with the cloaks, you had a couple of ridiculous bosses. The first one required a bunch of hunters, and I was a hunter back then, to run around in circles and kite the trash until all the eggs were destroyed. Can you imagine just running around in circles for 10 minutes? It was awful. The second boss, also awful for the tanks, since they just had to sacrifice themselves in order for the group to make it. The Cro-Magus fight, where you had to stand behind a wall like a bunch of scared children, instead of real heroes. And even when you made it all the way to Deathwing's chamber, he turned out to be the biggest laugh of all of them.
Let the games begin.
He had this special ability depending on what class you play. For example, paladins would bubble him. If you played a mage, you would sheep the rest of your group into, for example, giraffes. If you played a druid, he would force you to go into kitty form. And back then, kitty form was absolute crap. If you were a hunter like me, he would destroy your bow. That durability on your weapon, instantly gone. So if you didn't pay attention or you were too slow, he would destroy your weapon, leaving you with your crappy staff to hit him. Which was awful, but also amazing. Of course, if you did get him down, you would hang up his head in Stormwind, and everyone would know about your victory. For me, Nefarian will always be the best boss, and it kinda sucks that they resurrected him in the Cataclysm, but yeah, I'll always have these memories. Which brings us to the number 1 boss for me. Could it really be anyone else? It's of course the Lich King.
My child, I watched with pride as you grew into a weapon of righteousness.
The story of Arthas is, in my opinion, one of the best stories ever told by Blizzard. Throughout Warcraft 3, we see a holy prince trying to carry the burden of a kingdom in times that will break even the most pure of heart.
Oh no. We're too late. These people have all been infected. They may look fine now, but it's just a matter of time before they turn into the undead.
What?
This entire city must be purged.
How can you even consider that? There's got to be some other way.
Damn it, Uther. As your future king, I order you to purge this city.
You are not my king yet, boy. Nor would I obey that command even if you were.
Then I must consider this an act of treason.
Treason? Have you lost your mind, Arthas?
Have I?
With the calling of Streff home, he made a decision that might have saved the land at that moment, but would eventually lead him on a chase to the cold heart of Northrend. There he picked up the cursed blade Frostmourne, which took away a piece of his soul and knocked out his friend. He was able to use that power of the blade to kill Mal'Ganis, but at what price? The coming months he would roam the lands of Northrend, listening to whispers of Ner'zhul, slowly losing his mind, until the moment came where he returned to Lordaeron, murdered his own father and destroyed his kingdom.
Ah, my son.
You no longer need to sacrifice for your people. You no longer need to bear the weight of your crown. I've taken care of everything.
What is this? What are you doing, my son?
Succeeding you, father.
This kingdom shall fall, and from the ashes shall arise a new order that will shake the very foundations of the world.
The fallen prince resurrected Kel'thuzad, turned Sylvanas into a banshee, and eventually Ner'zhul would call him back to Northrend, for his power was slipping away. An agonizing journey to the frozen throne, battling against minions of the old gods, against Illidan, until finally he reached the top, where the whispers of his past followed him as he placed the helmet on his head and merged with Ner'zhul.
Not my king yet.
Forget this business. Lead your men home.
Damn it. You lost your mind, Arthas.
I must consider this an act of treason.
You lied to your men and betrayed the mercenaries who fought for you. What's happening to you, Arthas?
Some prince will find only death in the cold.
Release me from this prison.
This was just the start of his journey. In the period after that, he took a long, good look at his life, at the journey that led him to this place. He realized that he was done with being the good guy. He was done with following Ner'zhul's orders. So in his mind, he killed both of them, stood up and said, "Now there's only I. I am the Lich King and I'm ready." What makes Arthas such a top boss for me is the complete story flowing from even before Warcraft 3 into the wrath of the Lich King. Throughout the expansion we see him pop up from time to time, taunting us to face him within the walls of Icecrown.
Can you feel it, my son? Closing in all around you. The light's justice has been awakened. The sins of the past have finally caught up to you. You the atrocities you've committed. The unspeakable horrors you've let loose upon this world. And the dark, ancient powers you've enslaved. Though my soul was one of the first to be devoured by your evil, there are thousands more bound within this blade, and they cry out for release. Look now to your defenses, my son, for the champions of justice gather at your gates.
That was his master plan, pitch the greatest heroes Azeroth had to offer against the forces of the Scourge. Train them, grow them, lead them to his throne and turn them into agents that would fight and do his bidding. He would have won that day. Remember that we were all there, dead on the floor, ready to be resurrected and become his agents. And he would have had his perfect army, was it not for Tyrion, the Holy Light and the Ashbringer.
Watch now, as I raise them from the dead to become masters of the Scourge. They will shroud this world in chaos and destruction. Azeroth's fall will come at their hands, and you will be the first to die. I delight in the irony.
Light, grant me one final blessing. Give me the strength to shatter these bonds.
Consumed by your hatred.
Free, at last. It is over, my son. This is the moment of reckoning. Rise up, champions of the light!
Now I stand before the lands, and they do not fear. They cannot fear.
There's only one force, as far as my memory goes, who ever came as close to victory as Arthas had, and that's the original Horde who lost because Gul'dan betrayed them. Sure, there were a couple of things that didn't make sense within the story of Arthas, within the story of Lich King, like, for example, there must always be a Lich King. Why? Didn't we just kill the major badasses of the Scourge? Didn't we just kill the leader of the Scourge? But overall, I thought it was a brilliant done story. And on top of that, he's one hell of a boss to solo. And that's my top 10 final bosses in WoW. There were a bunch more that I would have loved to place on the list, but yeah, you only have so much room. It did give me a couple of ideas on possible lore videos for the future, because some of these bosses just deserve their own video. I hope you enjoyed the short versions of their story, and if you have a top 10 list of your own, feel free to post it in the comments. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!
Father, is it over?
At long last. No king rules forever, my son.
I see. Only darkness.